Good evening and welcome to the June Public Safety Committee meeting for Rutherford County. Start off and I'll ask for a motion on the minutes.
Make a motion to approve the minutes. Second.
We have a motion to second. All in favor of accepting the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Correctional Work Center report. Superintendent Salandi's on vacation this week, so the mayor assures us that there's nothing out of the ordinary on it, and so just take a look and for your own edification. And after you have, we'll entertain a motion.
On vacation. Budget week. Why aren't you on vacation, Mayor? There are reasons.
That's pretty good.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve the report
Second.
as received.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have 21 inmates that are on work release. Which is pretty good that we have. Okay. Next, OSHA. How'd you get up to the top of the list?
You know, they just need time to take more shots at me. Thank you very much. I'd like to report for the month of May that we had a total of 13 injuries requiring medical attention. Of those 13, you'll see the breakout there on the first page of your report. Brings the total of the year to 81. Of those 81, 15 of them are OSHA recordable. 22 had restricted days.
51 were OSHA recorded.
Total recordable for the year. Yes, sir. 22 for restricted days, 17 lost days, and 12 all others. If you look at the next page, you'll compare this year to the two previous years. And you'll see that this year's in the line graph, total of 81. The same time period last year, we had 89 injuries, and the year before that, 2013, we had a total of 73 injuries. The injuries for the month of May had total dollars incurred of $24,750. Of course, those are expected dollars for what it would take to close out the claims. It usually takes 6 months to a year to get the claim closed out, so those dollars may increase if additional treatment is needed, or if they close out quickly, those dollars may go down. Of the injuries this month, 4 of them were with the Board of Education, and the total dollars incurred there was $7,539. And the remaining with the County General, 9 claims, and the total dollars incurred there was $17,211. And if you look at the next page of your report, you'll see where those 9 claims were within the county area: the sheriff, animal services, and emergency management.
Where were they at pause? Was it in the facility?
In fact, I believe one of them was a dog bite, and I'm not sure if the other one was a cat scratch or what. Let me look and see here.
And I believe the other one was the
Motor vehicle accident. Yes, it was. I'm sorry. It was a motor vehicle accident and a dog bite.
Do you know where the dog bite was? What town? Was it city or?
I'm sorry, it says employee, no, it was a new employee. Forgive me, I thought it was a dog bite. We have the motor vehicle accident, and the other one was a new employee that had gotten dehydrated and had an incident at on the first day of work. Wasn't very extremely hot day with activities going on, so I'm sorry. The next last page of your report, you'll see where the entire shows the incurred dollars for the year to date, and the two peaks there basically amounted to a couple of claims in each of those months requiring surgery, and the surgeries have been rather extensive, and the dollars at this time are still high. I'm sure you all are familiar with some of those. They've actually made the news in the headlines in the paper for those, especially the one in April. So. On the last page of the report, I was asked to report some measurements and how we measure the injuries within the workforce when you have a work-related injury. The U.S. Department of Labor has identified how to measure those and has tasked that down to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. In that, on the last page of your report, you'll notice that I've set out the information for you for the last 8 years. It goes back to 2007 through this year, 2014. The information is actually provided every year at the end of the year on the OSHA Form 300A. We're required to report the injuries for the year, the total, lost time, how many were recordable, lost days. All that's provided on the form that I submit to Tennessee OSHA. In addition to that, on that form, I'm required to report the average number of employees and man hours. That information is obtained from the finance office here in the county. I request that information every January, and then we submit that form and post it. And if you'll remember, I've made quite an extensive effort to get that posted in all the county buildings. The information presented here, the Bureau of Labor Statistics has formulas that we set forth, and those formulas is what we use to then evaluate and measure how we're doing. And those formulas, as you see at the bottom of that page that you're looking at, the incident rate, lost time rate, and severity rate, it tells you how to measure those. Plugging that information in, that's where you get the last 4 columns that you look at on your injury and illness statistic recap that you're looking at. The column that I have highlighted that says state incident average, that's the state average as computed by the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development for that average within the state for local government. I pulled that from local government. All industries in the country report to that. So there'll be a mining one, there'll be one for truck drivers, there's one for whichever type of industry you can come up with. So you go through the book with all the statistics in it, and you can pull that out. Then I plugged in these numbers, and if you look there, then the total incident rate, plugged in the numbers for the incident rate, that the formula for the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and you can then see how the total incident rate for Rutherford County government then compares to the state incident average for the local government. And by continuing that and going through, you can then compare 2007 to the next year, to 2014. You'll see on average that the state incident average has been pretty constant above 5.0, usually averaging somewhere around 5.3, 5.4. Rutherford County government in 2007 had an incident rate of 3.95. And while we've had some places where we've gone up a little bit, come down, you'll notice over the last few years we've continued to decline, and in 2014 our total incident rate was 2.26. So that gives you an idea how we measure up compared to the state in our years previous to that. The important thing that you also need to think about is the severity rate, because we have people that are out of work or have lost time. And so the other two things, the lost time rate and the severity rate, you use the same formulas with the same numbers, and it can still tell you where we were and where we've come from. And if you look at the lost time rate in 2007, we were at 1.03, and where we were in 2014 is 0.53. So we're a third of where we were 8 years ago. In addition to that, if you look at the severity rate in 2007, you'll see that we were at 30.50 as compared to 2014, which is 8.92. So you can see again how we're doing and how we've come through the last 8 years as far as making progress for work-related injuries. Any questions about the?
I've been asking for this for a couple of years, and it's kind of interesting to know that we've had it, but because I haven't seen it. From an industry perspective, 2.0 is a target. If you've got an incident rate of less than 2.0, you've probably got a pretty decent safety program. I'm pleasantly surprised at this and our performance. I thought it would be higher than that. And it doesn't matter how many employees you have or how many accidents you have. It's based upon a standard.
Yes, it is.
Based upon the number of incidents you have and the hours that you work. So you can compare yourself to Nissan or anyone else for that matter. That's pretty impressive, actually. I'm kind of pleased with that. So whatever we've been doing, all the things that we've been doing over the last few years seems to be bringing that rate down. You can take those figures and departmentalize them and come up with that incident rate for every particular department and be able to notice trends in certain departments and kind of react in that way too, correct?
You can't. Just have to get the breakdown from finance for the man hours that are used in those departments and the finances, the payroll. Yes, sir.
That would be good information for some departments to have to know how they're doing.
Yes, sir.
So if I'd like to see us over the next few months begin to break those things down, and we can give reports to departments, some departments that report to this committee as to how they're doing and if their rates are going up or down, and what can we do to react to those types of things.
Okay,
but this is good, and I appreciate you supplying us with that.
One thing I just want to tell you, when we ask about what types of things affect these numbers, one of the biggest things is a return to work program. Department heads working with the employees that are injured, trying to find work where they're not out of work but actually come back and find some way to contribute to the department. In addition to that is getting a good working relationship with the attending physicians so that the physicians understand that don't take somebody off work. Tell me what their restrictions are so then we can work to see if we can't find work available for them. Quick referrals. If we have somebody who, for one reason or another, may not be healing quickly enough, to get them referred out of one doctor to a specialist so that we don't spend a lot of time having them with a doctor that perhaps is just waiting to see if something's going to happen, so we do that. And then also the biggest thing I always preach is safety awareness. And I can't express that more than enough, is safety awareness. People need to be aware that when they're walking down the street, walking through the classroom, in the area, you don't be looking at the ceiling and watching what's going on and then trip over something that's laying in the middle of the floor. We need to be aware of our environment and aware of what's going on around us.
The reason that total incident rate is important, and in my mind it's more important than severity, because the number of incidents you have leads up to a severe accident. So if you can reduce the number of incidents, you're going to reduce the number of serious accidents, and that's the reason that the incident rate is so
absolutely important. In fact, it's even said that one of the things that we miss is the near misses, because near misses don't get reported. If somebody was going to trip and they tripped, but then they didn't fall and didn't get hurt and there was no injury or anything like that, then you never hear about it. But that's a near miss. And how many near misses does it take before you have an actual injury? And that comes down to the supervisors being aware of what's going on in their departments, looking out for the near misses. Yes, sir.
Any further questions? What year did you come here?
I started working for the county in October of 2007.
Oh, somewhere back around there. Okay.
A lot has gone on, and I just, with that, I'd just like to remind you, the county has grown so much. If you just look at those numbers in that and look at the manpower and man hours that's worked, you can see how much the county has grown in those numbers. That tells you more than just looking at it and talking about injuries. When you talk about the county growing and the people that have been added to the county payroll and the dollars, you can just look at that and say, wow, where have we been and what are we doing? And with all the growth, it still comes down that much as far as injuries are concerned is something for every county employee. Every county employee.
So total incident rate is so important because no matter how we grow, if that rate is in line,
yes, sir, you are right. It does, and it's equalizer.
Thank you. I'll move to approve the report, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thanks very much.
sir. Mr. Gregory.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Ready, sir?
Go ahead. Pardon?
For the month of May, we had 515 animals that entered into the shelter. 26% came from county jurisdictions, 14.6% came from the city of Laverne, 45.8% came from the city of Murfreesboro, and 13.6% came from the town of Smyrna. We had 183 adoptions for the month, 223 animals that were humanely euthanized, 54 animals reclaimed by their original owner, 11 animals were deceased, and we had 19 other outcomes. Gave us an adoption reclaim percentage of 48.3% overall and a 45.5% euthanasia rate. Commissioner Phillips had asked some questions last month about the adoption reclaim, so I went and pulled some figures from a year ago. Our dog adoption and reclaim percentage last year was 70%. We're almost 80% this year. We've seen, of course, that affects the euthanasia rate, which came down from 28% to 19.2% for our dogs. Our cats are where we have our major issues right now. Those are some things that we're working on internally to try to do some background work to see how we can alleviate that problem. For the month, we had 50.8% live release rate. 4 animals were reclaimed using the surgery programs. That was the wrapping up of the Animal Friendly grant. We had 133 animals that remained in the shelter at the end of the month. 1,950 people came into the shelter looking for a lost or new pet, and we had 1,721 log calls and voicemails. 1,520 calls were received, 1,563 calls were completed out for the month, and we traveled 12,168 miles. Fiscal year to date, we've taken in 6,089 animals. We've had an overall adoption reclaim percentage of 40.3% and the euthanasia rate of 51.1%. If you take our live release rate, it's 45.3% for the fiscal year. We've had over 21,000 people visit the shelter and 22,740 log calls and voicemails. 17,090 calls have been received and 17,098 calls have been completed. You see the breakdown by jurisdiction, and we've traveled a little over 118,000 miles. For the rabies exposure and bite report for the month of May, and remember this goes calendar year, not fiscal year. We had 28 bites that were reported for the month. 2 of those were tested. 1 came back as a unsatisfactory, which does count as a positive. It did come back on a dog. In this particular incident, 2 dogs were fighting. The owner tried to break up the fight, was unsuccessful, was bitten. She screamed for a neighbor to come over and shoot the dog. Unfortunately, where they shot the dog, it made testing urine possible, thus the unsatisfactory result there. That was turned over to the health department for them to do a risk assessment. On the other exposure, we had 10 reported for the month, 1 tested, didn't have any positives on that one.
Any questions for Mr. Gregory?
Mobile unit, been out it much?
This month's been tough. Yes, we have things that are scheduled. We had one this past Saturday that we had to cancel just because we didn't have the manpower. We've got a couple of folks that are out on FMLA, and it's really put a hurting on us. We do have 2 or 3 scheduled in July. I had another person call this afternoon that will be calling back into the week wanting to schedule. We're kind of seeing it go from You know, we were just going to kind of PetSmart and a few animal-related events to it kind of branching out. We've had requests from apartment complexes to where they're, you know, they're pet-friendly. The one that I received today was just from a general business that just wants to do something to help promote us. So it's kind of changed a little bit there, but we get it out as often as we can.
Michael, I see where Halls was in the news on Channel 5 this past weekend.
Yes.
Dealing with warrants.
Yes, sir.
And I just want to commend you to hang tough when we're dealing with rabies, especially out in the rural area. You just can't take this for granted.
Right.
And you have that responsibility.
Right. Well, to give a little bit of background on that, for you all that were voted in the fall, we changed that policy February of 2014. Basically what we did was we took we call them POV calls, proof of vaccination calls, and we looked and said, okay, these are how many POV calls we're handling, and it was eating up half of an officer's time per year, and it just wasn't something we could continue to sustain without asking for additional manpower. We were having some of those calls go 4, 5, 6 sequences, which each time an officer touches it is a sequence. So we were going out 6, 7, 8 times sometimes before we would ever get to the point of either getting the proof of vaccination or going to the warrant. We did a lot of research with Metro, Montgomery County, Williamson County, and there were a few others that we got to respond. Memphis, we got them to respond. I think Knox County may have responded as well. Some of those folks were issuing citations on the spot, which we could do, but our approach has always been education first. So what we do on the first day is, and we don't just go around knocking on people's doors looking for these. We're already there on another incident, and we're asking, hey, we need your proof of vaccination. So on that day, they're given a 2-week warning. They understand on day one that if they don't provide it within the 2 weeks, then they're going to have 3 days to sign for the citation. And then after that, a warrant's going to be issued. So they've got multiple steps there that they've failed to meet by the time a warrant's come out. And we try to be as lenient as possible on that, but it gets to a point to where you're not upholding your end of the bargain, so we don't have a choice. And you know, we did have, last year we had 18 positives or unsatisfactories for the county. This year we were already at, what, 6 or 8? You know, it's Tennessee state law, and we are rabies and animal control. We're going to enforce it.
You just had to warn that the neighbor had to shoot the dog.
Mhm.
Okay. Any further questions from Mr. Grable? Quick question.
Sure.
It seems that the adoption rate is up now. When you said with the reclaim, 45%, that is higher than it's been, you'd say 3 years ago. That it's
Well, I pulled,
been national.
for this month, our overall adoption reclaim percentage was 48.3%. Last year, it was 38.2%. So it is up. But what the biggest thing that impacts that rate is the number of intakes going down. Our intakes for May of 2015 were 515 animals. A year ago it was 597. So that, you know, you're talking 85 animals that didn't enter my shelter this month that did last year during the same month. The biggest things that we have to do is to make sure that we keep that intake lower. You know, we put in for next year's budget to put in the 1,000 surgeries to be able to open up some more spay and neuter surgeries to the public, and we're starting to see that intake number go down. That's the only thing that's going to affect that adoption reclaim percentage rate.
And also, before I ask for a motion, is I was talking to a neighbor a couple of fields away from me last weekend, I think it was. And I was talking to him about moles, but he happened to bring up where I live. It's out near Percy Priest, and we had skunks come out there, and they nest around, and easy to tell when a skunk's been around. Well, anyhow, he said, I don't know if he had the traps or if we got them from you, because I know he does have some. And he managed to capture 2 skunks. We all came out and got them.
Well, that would have been the first and only incident we would on that. Back when we did the rules change,
yeah,
you know, we give them kind of that one free, but then after that, he contacted wildlife removal. So I'm glad it was his first one we were able to help him. But he may be
I'm glad you got it too.
he may bend your ear though when he calls back the second time.
Okay, all right. So, any further questions on the report?
Does the city of Murfreesboro contribute anything to your?
Yes, they do. Their contribution over the last couple of years has been $68,500, and we asked for that to remain the same in this year's budget.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
No further questions? I'll entertain a motion on the report.
I so move.
Got a motion, we have a second.
Second.
Second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Nunley. Thank you. Good evening.
We had 2,570 calls for the month of May. Average response time is 8.1 minutes. 39 DOAs and 11 autopsies. The total bill was $1,470,838. Our year-to-date collection is $6,333,449, which gives us a projection of a little bit over $6.9 million. We had insurance write-offs of $519,659 and collection agency write-offs $366,649. The table at the bottom of the page is the ambulances and how much we spent on maintenance and costs and operating costs. We drove a total of 48,545 miles. We had 909 out-of-zone calls. The things that we have kind of been paying close attention to, the total number of calls continues to be up. The response time is the same this month as it has been for the last couple of months. But if you notice over past years, it has kind of eased up a little bit. So we're concerned about that, and we feel like we've done everything we can on our end to lower that. But I think the big culprit is the out-of-zone calls as well as the total number of calls.
How many in next year's budget do you have ambulances put in for?
Vehicles? We have a total of 3. 2 new ambulances and 1 conversion, which is where you take the box and replace the chassis.
I wasn't sure if it was 2 or 3.
And, you know, we're putting about 50,000 miles a month on the ambulances, and the life of the ambulance is about 200,000 miles, so that's about 3 ambulances a year.
You give them to other counties after you got the spare units down here. Sooner or later, those spare units are going to go. Do you sell them to other counties, give them to other counties, or
We've not ever sold them. One of the things that we primarily have done is donated them to other agencies in government, not just Rutherford County government, but the city of Murfreesboro and the other cities and the municipalities, as well as Eagleville. So other agencies have uses for some of the ambulances. We did trade some in 2 years ago. We were offered what we felt like was a pretty good deal on trade-in for them. That they weren't interested in trucks themselves, but they were interested in the boxes. So, we did that one time. And we'll see if we can do that again this year.
Okay. Thank you.
The following pages are just the in-services and training, as well as the activities of our various teams that we have at the ambulance service. As you can see, it was a pretty busy month. The school winding up, it generally is a pretty busy month, especially for the REACT team, because they attend all the schools and give demonstrations and help with their activities.
Spring fling.
We cover spring fling.
Any particular problems with that?
No, we haven't had any problems. We did have one overheating issue. That's not too uncommon this time of year. The following page is just the number of calls or response times and the time on the scene, so forth, by station. Probably, unless somebody has a big objection, next year this page is just going to kind of go away, because we got a better page a little bit further on in the report that gives us a better forth than that one does. And then the calls are broken down by Commissioners District, as well as the national calls and our transport team calls. For the month, in the following page is the same data for the year. And then the next page is a page that I said actually did a better job at telling us where the calls are being made. This is the number of calls that are actually in the district and who the calls were made by. And as you can see, it's pretty much all over the chart, with primarily the largest number being in their zone, but however, the Manchester Road ambulance, for instance, is an exception to that fact. They make more calls into several of the zones, primarily in TSU, than they do in their own zone. And we have several pages of thank you type notes and those sort of things.
You got a couple of events coming up, correct? You want to mention what they are? Just well, you got the opening for the refurbishing of your business office.
We're going to have an open house, and of course all of you will get an invitation to that. We already have it for the Pay Center, which we are going to have to quit calling the Pay Center, I guess. Decide on the name of its own, but so that's one thing. We have interviews for our scholarship that are taking place in the next couple of weeks. It continues to be busy.
Yeah, well, the scholarship program, it's worked out pretty decent for you, hasn't it?
It's worked out really well.
Okay.
The hospitals and other agencies and individuals in our community have responded to that with donations, and that's what we use is donations to. We send EMTs that are working for the ambulance service to paramedic school and pay their tuition for that. And in return, they sign an agreement to work for us for 3 years afterwards. It works well.
Any further questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion on the report.
Move to approve the report.
The motion, we have a second.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
I actually have 2 amendments, and one of them is not on your discussion.
Got enough.
They pertain to the same thing, but they're a little bit different. The first one that you have on your report is to transfer money into overtime pay and consequently into Social Security and those things as well. This is for dispatcher training. We are implementing a new computer-aided dispatch. We were in partners with the city of Murfreesboro on that, and it's going to require some training on our dispatchers. The 911 board contributes money to the education of dispatchers, and that money can be used for anything that has to do with the training of dispatchers. And so what we'd like to do is to transfer $10,000 of the money that we get from 911 into overtime to pay for that training. Take them both together. The second one, the reason it wasn't on your report is because this just came up in a meeting with the mayor that I had about an hour and a half ago, and we determined that we didn't have enough money left in our overtime account for a number of reasons, but primarily because we've had quite a bit of turnover in our paramedic positions, and in addition to that is vacation time for a lot of employees, and they earn that vacation. We try to give it to them as much as we can. So anyway, Lisa came up with the $20,000 figure, we have that money available in paraprofessional account, and so we're asking to transfer $20,000 from paraprofessionals into overtime to get us through this year.
Any questions on the?
The first one was a $32,000 contribution or grant of some sort
Yeah,
for that training.
They contribute to each one of the public safety answering points,
Right.
and they use a formula of $4,000 per station at the answering point.
It's pretty cool. Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Got a motion?
Second.
We have a second. Roll, please.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Nipper?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Farley?
The first two pages are our call volume for our department, broken down by description of what it is. So far, we've had 618 calls this year, just for Rutherford County Fire Rescue. We had 130 calls this last month. Had 130 calls for this last month since the last public safety meeting. And then the third sheet is the breakdown of all the motor vehicle accidents all the way across the county. The ones highlighted in yellow shows where we actually went out of our zone, out of our district to backfill in another district because that rescue truck was down in that area. We got a total of 69 MVA calls. Our average response time was 8.5 minutes. And there's the breakdown of the rescue trucks and then where they're located at. Next sheet is total breakdown for the call volume for all the other departments in the county. And I didn't receive a report from Midland Falls for April this month, so I don't know what their totals are. But our total so far countywide is 1,250 calls. And it's got the training hours down there showing what each department trains per month. And then the last sheet is structures that have been damaged and will require a permit from the county codes department.
Questions for Chief Farley? Henley Road, that's out heading towards Wilson County on Wheatley. Does it come off there?
Yeah, it's District 15. It'd be in Animals District, so it could be out there. Matter of fact, I believe that is where it's at.
That's a rough one to have in place because it turns to dirt real quick heading back there
And that
and
and
goes back into the woods.
South Lamar Road, it just
Yeah.
goes off in nowhere.
Chief, if you know, on this last page, structure fires, District 21, which is Walter Hill,
Mhm.
do you know what time of day those occurred?
No, I could get those numbers for you.
I'm just wondering if, you know, if.
Well, now Joe Brown Road, I was actually on that fire. That was in the daytime. Gentleman here moved here out of the country, bought some lots, and
Right,
he pretty much just torched that house.
okay. So
That was around about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
did Walter Hill Department respond to that, or did you
Yeah,
have to?
our department was, we had Our truck responded with our tanker, our new tanker actually, and I had 2 people from Walter Hill and 2 trucks.
Good.
You must not have got his burn permit.
Well, he actually just set the porch on fire and walked off and left it. I think his purpose was to destroy the structures and sell the land. And of course, I called fire investigators and they couldn't prosecute him because he didn't have any insurance on it. So it wasn't, you know, I guess you can burn anything as long as you don't try to collect the insurance on it.
Except people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any further questions for Chief Farley? Entertain a motion on this report.
So moved.
Motion is second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you much. Have a good day.
Larry.
Mr. Gass is anxious today.
Oh, I'm just trying to be proficient here. You have my report in front of you. We had no events concerning mitigation this month. However, we just got word about a mitigation grant today, $150 million U.S. grant, state grant, looking into whether we have any properties that will fulfill the requirements. What they're looking at is repetitive loss, which they call RLs, or severe repetitive losses, and it's for tearing down structures and moving folks. So I don't know if we have any in that arena, but I've contacted engineering today and plans, and we'll look at that. So under preparedness, a lot of the usual stuff that we do at this time of the year, we did a communications drill with TEMA. We've also had a couple of meetings with vendors for the fixed site communications project, as well as some training we've done. We've conducted the traffic incident management training that's put on by THP, was done at the EOC, as well as a few meetings. This time of year we get a lot of requests for public relations type things, like doing some instruction with Boy Scouts and such as that, since it's summertime, so they can get their badges. We have started initial planning on an exercise with the Correctional Works Center, and we're going to do that this fall, I think around October. Talking about the fixed site communications, we're still working on 3 sites, Eagleville, Hudson, and Bradyville. One of the biggest issues that we've had is removing the dish at the Hudson site. It was challenging because of the terrain as well as the power lines that were there. The vendor was able to finally get that down this past week, and so things will start moving more quickly on that site. On another topic, a Homeland Security grant for 2014, we're going to carry over $22,812 from the 14 grant into 15. Just to let you know, it has to do with some things that SORT was going to purchase with that just the purchase just has not completed yet. So, and that's pretty normal. We're not running out of time by any means to spend the money. Like I mentioned, we're working on a work center exercise. We've had an intern that Mr. Gurley has been training for the past few weeks. It's one of that high school intern program that Chamber of Commerce is into, and she's done a really good job since she's been there. And this Wednesday we have an exercise scheduled with MTSU that we're supporting them on. They're required, I think, for some accreditation purposes to do an exercise, and that's what this one is all about. It'll be a mix of I won't say it's a full-scale exercise, but it's not a tabletop either.
Let me ask you one question. You said you got work on those 3 sites at Eagleville, Hudson, and Bradyville. I'm just asking, how close are we at Eagleville and Hudson? Because when I go to the Eagleville City Council meetings, they ask me how close are we on those sites, because
well, as luck would have it, the project manager on that is actually sitting at this table. So, Mr. Gurley, you can probably answer this better than I can.
I would hope by the end of July, we got this dish down off the top, 12-foot dish at the top of the Hudson Tower that was keeping us from doing anything there. So I've put out quotes for installing antennas at Hudson and Bradyville sites, and once we get those on, we'll have Motorola engineers in to hook everything up. Everything's installed as far as equipment. We're just waiting on antenna install. Those quotes should be done tomorrow, hopefully, and we'll get a PO for that and get it done by, the goal is to get engineers in here by no later than the third week, probably take them about a week, and to turn up these sites, and then we'll go. The microwave's in, all the radio equipment's sitting there. It's just hanging antennas.
There's a reason why we won't get it done by the end of July. You gentlemen know what that is? I was really hoping y'all could back me up and prevent that from happening. Is there something y'all could do to prevent him from retiring?
He said he could use any leftover vacation he has into
Actually,
August.
We can tie him to the Hudson Tower. If he wants to.
Actually, what's happening, and once he's retired from being a full-time employee and he's burned up his 3 weeks of vacation he has saved up, he is going to come back and work with us 1 to 2 days a week for about 6 months to finish up the project and get the
About
next
2 months.
2 months. No more than 6 months. I should rephrase that. But he's going to work with the replacement, whoever that may be, and make sure we're tracking well. So we shouldn't lose a step. Under response, we had 9 responses since the last public safety meeting. 1 spill, 2 illegal fires. One of them was the one the chief was just talking about. That actually ended up being 2 incidents. That guy really liked to burn his stuff. We have 1 request for mutual aid from Cannon County for a hazmat team, which was provided by SORT. There were 2 incidents of aircraft issues at Smyrna Airport. However, they were resolved, so they didn't end up being much at all. We got requests on 1 missing person. That was one of Halt's Hill Pike, which you've seen in the paper, and 1 suspicious odor. There's fortunately been nothing on recovery. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes my report.
Questions for Mr. Cast?
The burns, we talked about it last month and then again this month, where the guy set the houses on fire just to clean his lot. I'm sure some of that debris has to be hauled off somewhere. Is there an indication where that's going, and is there anything hazardous about it that needs to be treated in a special way?
What will happen is, and what should have already happened, and we haven't gotten a report back from TDEC, if we report that there's hazardous materials being burned, they'll go back out and they'll put it on the property owner to take care of it. But in this case, if my memory serves, there really wasn't much left to see if there's anything left that was considered hazardous. It was just nuisance.
So where will that debris go? Which landfill will it go in?
I really don't know. I'll have to go back and look, sir. I don't know off the top of my head.
Any further questions?
I'll move to approve his report.
Got a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, sir. Missed it. I was reading. She gives us all those incident reports, and some of them are pretty.
Good evening. You have in front of you our reports for the month of May. I don't think there's anything that really requires any particular interest. I will say that Franklin County owes over $5,000, which is kind of like our this may need attention point. However, that was 1 month bill, so they're not behind. But I thought I would mention, if you saw the $59.50 bill, that you might think that they were more than 1 month behind, but they're technically not behind at all. But I thought I'd mention it. Beyond that, I'll answer any questions that you may have.
This population average, for the months, how are we running kind of compared to last year and year before? Is it about the same, or are we up some?
It's about the same. May, one of the things you have to keep in mind with your population averages is not so much that we had more kids come through the door. but they stayed longer. So that's why 34 may look interesting as opposed to, say, last month when there was 27.
Okay.
So we didn't really see additional kids coming in, but the ones we had more serious charges and stayed longer. But as opposed to last year, it's about the same.
Do you, off the top of your head, know how much you collected roughly last year?
I think it's gonna be more this year than it was last year, but I didn't bring that with me.
Okay. I know because what was it, a couple of years ago we upped the charge. We've been holding about the same people, so it'd have to be up. Any further questions for Ms. Duke? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Short and sweet, wasn't it?
Thank you.
Okay. Sheriff.
Good evening.
Good evening.
There's your code.
Just got our report and then lease agreement, so.
Okay. All right. Anything significant in your report?
Not that I
You're
was,
not
not that I,
out of anything?
not right this minute.
Not this minute, maybe one. Okay. All right, thank you. I'll give you all a minute to look at the report. Well, I like that phone a while ago, and you would have had this one with the 7th Cavalry bringing you all up here tonight or something.
What?
The Deputy Mayor.
Oh, yeah.
You get that little dig in on you.
I thought maybe Forrest is riding in.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody have any questions on the report? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
A motion to approve the report, and we have a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so we have a lease agreement.
Yes. It's the Sergeant Levi's lease agreement. It has an extension on the current one, but we have had to go up by $60 additionally a month, so we figured it'd be best just to run it through again. It's the same agreement we've had in the past, except it is going up by $60. So we just figured run it through here, then take the budget finance on Wednesday, and then try to have it in front of the full commission whenever y'all do the budget. That way we get it done by July 6th, I think, is when the other one's up.
We've got a budget on Wednesday.
Yes.
Okay. Is it just a one-year lease?
Well, it's got an option up to 5 times following the initial term, and that's how the other one did. But talking with the mayor, we just figured since it's going up by $60 for water, that we just go ahead and run it back through, and then it'll be good for. This will be good for another 5 years after this.
How
one.
many horses we have? 6?
8, sir.
8.
Yes. We figured $60 on, we just did the math, me and Ms. Montgomery did the math of right around $2 a day. And
Yeah, it's
then,
really not bad.
no, sir, it's not.
Okay.
Could you explain the arrangements for this barn? It belongs to someone, and
Yes.
are there other horses that are housed there?
No, the owner, there's a house on the property which is fenced in according to contract. We don't have that. She lives in, the owner lives in. She does have, I think, 2 of her horses there, but we don't, separate from ours, we don't mess with her horses or touch her horses.
Who cares for them?
She does. She lives on the property. The owner lives in the house on the property. She takes care of her horses.
So this agreement covers everything? Her taking care of the horses, or is that separate?
This agreement, as us taking care of our horses, the $260 a month is for the lease of all the acreage, the outdoor arena, lighted arena, and all the land.
I guess what I'm asking is who tends these horses? Who tends them?
I do, sir.
Okay.
I do,
Is that,
and my other riders help me.
is that full-time for you?
I'm full-time mounted, yes, sir, but also when I don't have mounted events, I patrol as a supervisor on the road. So I actually patrol on the road as a patrol supervisor and also tend to the horses.
Now, how many hours a week you spending at that, tending those horses?
It depends on if we have an event. I would say probably half, 2/3 of my shift a week is out there.
So 65% of your time is tending the horses?
Yeah, during this time of year, yes, sir, because we have some outdoor events. During the wintertime, it slows down some, sir, but during this time of event, yes, sir, I would say so.
What kind of events have you attended in the last week, month?
Last month, we probably did, we were at Smyrna, the street festival. Then the next day, we actually had 2 events. We attended to Family Day in Leanna, and then we did the McFadden event. We had 2 events in one day we did. Music on the Square. We helped with the search and rescue on Halls Hill Pike. I'm trying to think what else we did. And we went to Laverne for Carry the Load for those people that came through. Did that and events like that. At this time of year, starting to pick up. You know, in the next week or so, we'll have the fireworks shows that we'll do in Smyrna and Murfreesboro. Then the music on the square again, and stuff like that. We're going to start, now that some of my riders are out of school, some of them are SROs, patrolling neighborhoods, because that frees up a man that doesn't have to be in the school at the time, that we can patrol neighborhoods with the horses. So we stay
busy.
Pretty busy this time.
Especially on the weekends. Saturdays, there's
just kind of what I was trying to figure out.
Yes.
If we didn't have this particular service, how would those events be covered?
they wouldn't. Or we pull patrol officers.
Isn't that what you're doing anyway? Aren't these guys patrol officers?
Well, he spends most of his time, but then those other guys are doing overtime, so we'd have to pull somebody out or overtime for that.
So most of these events are covered by overtime?
A lot of them.
Really?
Well, some of the, I also swap shift time as far as my SROs.
They'll swap out. And some of the other guys, if they know that they got a real busy weekend, we may let them off on Monday and then work them on Saturday. So they know the events and they kind of work with their supervisors.
We plan our events for our SROs also, that they know how much time during the summer they have, that they would not have to accrue so much comp time, that they could use that time instead of using the comp time that they accrue to take the summer off, and they just come help the horses. And I have 3 SROs, so that frees me up to not have to pull from patrol, and also cuts down on the overtime because I can use SROs who are not using comp time, during the year, and they're actually just using shift time, which comes out as just regular shift time.
Commissioner, this may be somewhat, we have what's called a FAST team at the Sheriff's Department. I think you're familiar with it. Those individuals on that FAST team, they're not doing that all the time. They have other things. They serve warrants. They're taking people back and forth, I think, to Memphis and things of that type. When they're not doing that, they're doing their training, or they're involved in doing what there is in FAST. So I think, the way I'm looking at this, they have multiple tasks that they do back and forth, and I guess this is possibly works the same way.
Yes, sir. That's how it works. I'm only full-time, and then the other ones are choose to be on it, and they do put a lot of their own time in some training. We try to train at least once a month, training as a team, as a 7-member team, and then a lot of those guys come out on their own and just come to the barn and train on their own and get some training time in, and just don't ever put it down, just because they like coming out there and riding, and bring their, bring your kids, let them run around. So
I would think the events that you go to on the weekends and all that promotes goodwill from the sheriff's office to the young people.
And we get requests. People want us out there. You know, we are wanted on the square. We're wanted at the shopping malls. You know, how he knows about all the events in Laverne, we get requests to be there.
We're actually called to be there.
I mean,
In
you
the
know,
neighborhoods, it's actually amazing, you know, when they started going out to the neighborhoods and just riding during the week. And the mothers, the stay-at-home moms and the kids would all come out of their houses and run up and they just want to pet the horses in the neighborhoods.
I was at the Smyrna 100-year celebration here recently, and I must say that the horses and then the fire truck were right there. The horses were getting more attention than the fire truck.
I will say that they are a great PR tool with any department. You can do statistics or studies. The amount of unit within any department is probably the best PR tool and public relations to help a good feeling within police departments or sheriff's departments there is. But also they are a very effective law enforcement tool. We stood outside at the Smyrna event and just watching the crowd, sure we're being petted and everything, but at the same time if something were to happen at the Jazz Fest or at the fireworks show, we actually can go into the crowd. These horses are trained to
And
go
they're
in.
sitting up, looking out over the crowd
to
so
take
you
care
can
of the
see.
problems. So that's the joy of the program is that right there. And you know, the neighborhoods, we're patrolling the neighborhood, and if I'm patrolling in a car, somebody's in the yard, they like to see the cars go by and they'll wave because they like to see that unit in their neighborhood. But if we ride through in our horses, it's every time somebody's going to stop what they're doing in the yard, come talk to us. And then before you know it, there's going to, like the sheriff said, there's going to be 2 or 3 other people from houses come up. And within that time, they're going to say, you know what, we had a house broke into, you know, here last week, and there's been a red Ford pickup truck that just doesn't belong to the neighborhood. Great, I take a pen and paper out, I write that down, and then I find out what detective may be working that case, and I give him that information. And then that information leads in, hopefully, to something else. But when I'm in a car, that just doesn't happen. And that's the joy of having these animals.
So the cost of this lease is what?
It's $260 a month, sir. And that's 8 horses. That's for 8 horses, all the land, use of the barn, and water. She pays for the water, and a lighted outdoor arena that we train in. We have an obstacle course in our training arena.
Sounds pretty inexpensive.
It's, if you need to know anything about boarding, it's very, very inexpensive. Yes, sir.
That's
Yes,
a
sir.
very large barn. Do you use the entire structure?
Yes, sir. The barn, you know how Mr.
Oh,
Keyser
yeah.
built it.
Yeah.
He built it pretty good. We actually, because I use Percheron horses, which the horse that I ride is 18-1. She's probably 2,200 pounds. He's made those stalls where I can turn them into double stalls. And so instead of single 12 by 12 stalls, my horses actually have 12 by 24 stalls. And so down one side I have 5 stalls, down the other I have like 3. And then we have some single stalls that I can, you know, use if I need to. You know, need one to, you know, in a little smaller space. But yes, we actually do. And the barn has an office in it for us, just maybe half, you know, just it's the size of the double stall. So 12 or 24 office has a tack room, a bathroom, and a feed room. So yes, sir, all the space is being utilized.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And all the land is cut back on our feed, you know, because we got so much land to feed them. It's actually, it's pretty nice. It's a very nice facility, and she's a very nice lady.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Further questions? No, we'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second.
And Mr. Chairman, and to approve the lease and its execution thereof.
Forwarded the budget.
That was
Yeah,
forwarded
I
to
need to-
budget.
yeah.
Forwarded to budget.
Need to approve
Okay.
the lease.
All right, well, I don't think, well, go ahead and call a roll. It's got money involved.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Nipper,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Aye.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes. Thank you all. Have a great weekend.
You're talking about using different events. 4th of July, Rockville still has their 4th of July picnic, which is the oldest event like this in the state, possibly in the nation in some places. But there will be a public safety presentation out there. Part of the FAST team's going to be there. They're going to bring their Bearcat out there, set it up with some of the members. The choice car, I think, is going to be out there, and then some other, and then we're hoping possibly something from the Rutherford County Fire Department will be there too, for people to come by and see what's available as far as that's concerned too.
We've got quite a few people volunteering out there. I regret I'm not going to be there. I'm going to my father-in-law's this year, so.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. Y'all have a good evening.
Mr. King. Yes, sir. How are you tonight?
Doing well, thank y'all. I'll be very brief. What you have before you, the main reason for coming tonight, normally I only come quarterly, but there are 3 separate funding agreements and contracts. So this is more of a positive note, totaling all 3 together almost $130,000. That's money that's coming into the program, so that's less money I have to ask for. The first one is involving the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. This is for our main drug court funding. It totals $107,500. This helps pay for staff for our salaries, our benefits, as well as our drug screen cost.
Which one are we on?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What would be our name for it?
I guess
County Recovery Court?
Yes, sir. That's probably number, I guess it'd be bullet item 2. I'm sorry.
Bullet item 2.
Item 4.
Item 4.
Item
I don't ever
4.
use this little iPad. I'm sorry.
It has to be one of those right
This
there.
is the original.
Which one are we on?
There.
Yeah, it's the first, it's the fourth
Okay.
one.
Fourth one. I'm
But it
sorry.
says 107,000.
That's it. I apologize.
Okay.
That's all right.
All right.
I'll use this now.
And this is a full grant with no matching?
No matching. This is what we anticipate to receive every year. So this is a reoccurring reoccurring funding agreement that we receive from the department.
So,
On the last page of that, kind of list out, we'll be receiving approximately $84,000 in salaries, another $16,726 in benefits and taxes to apply to those salaries, and then $6,804 for drug screens.
This has already been approved.
Yes, and this will go to the budget Wednesday.
What do you need from us?
Just to bring it to you, just so that you know.
Okay.
Just to accept these grants and
all
authorize us to
signatures.
execute them.
okay.
Can we take them all at once?
Yeah, that'd be good. Is the next
The
one
next one will be probably, let me see, make sure.
5,000?
Item number. Yes, it will be
Alcohol and drug
5,000.
addiction?
Number 5, yes, for 5,000.
Okay.
That is for, this is basically money for those that do not have insurance. We are allowed to bill for services through the state to kind of collect for our therapy charges or some of our different assessments and the like. So this is a $5,000 grant that we can bill against.
Again, no matching?
No matching.
Okay. You heard the request. Any questions? So we go to the third one?
Third one is for drug court. It's for the spot. It's for $17,000. No matching.
And what's it used?
This is for the same services for therapy.
Okay.
For the building.
All right.
So the only downfall to that is if we don't bill, we don't get it. So
All right.
there's always a need for money.
Okay. So you heard the request. We have a motion.
I'm really excited about the way this drug court has been going this year. And I move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second. All signatures? Okay. We got a motion and a second. Guess we ought to call the roll again with accepting money. That's a good one, though. It doesn't have any strings attached to it.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Nipper?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes. Okay. Oh, and he's got his,
I just attached the other
report.
statistics.
If you want to take a,
Take a look at those.
report of statistics.
They basically stayed the same a little bit. We are up to 36 participants currently in drug court. We have 22 currently in DUI program. Still our number one drug of choice for our drug court is opiates. Approximately 41% of all of our participants are opiate abusers. We are seeing an increase now in heroin, so that's going to be a little bit more difficult to treat, so especially with intravenous users.
Any questions on his report? Okay, we'll entertain a motion on it. Got a motion, we have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Looking forward to this next year over there.
Yes, sir.
All right. We have any other business?
Well, next meeting,
It'll be at the fourth Monday?
so,
Yeah, that'll be the fourth Monday. And if something comes up that we don't need it, we contact them. Okay. But that would be our only meeting before our August commission meeting. Okay, so we'll probably will have it. So, July 27th. Fourth Monday. Okay, no further comments or anything? We are adjourned.